All right, it's recording. And we can use it or not. Pause and do all
Edit.
that stuff. Edit. I don't know about edit. I'm not quite at that stage yet.
Okay.
All right. So where are you at?
Well, good morning. It's so
Yeah,
nice
good
to
morning.
be here.
Here's Pixel.
um, yeah, no, this is fun. I'm glad we're doing this. And if you need help with the editing, Finn's really good at that.
Oh, he does videos?
Well, he taught me how to do it. And I wrote it down. So either that or I could help you, but maybe stumble through. Hey, Pixel. Good morning, Pixel.
I'll have to do it.
Okay. I like your tapestry in the background there.
I know. I got it from a far away exotic land.
Yeah. I
Travels to Tibet.
think it's from India.
Well, someone brought it to Tibet from India. It's very close.
Okay. That has that spiritual, mystical feel to it.
Mm-hmm. And my lamp. If I turn it the other way, it shows all my books and my chaos. So
Well, that would be a good take someday.
yeah, I switch it up. Anyways, how was the intensive?
The intensive was really difficult.
As
I was
in
going to say it was good. And I was like,
monitoring it, right?
monitoring it.
It's
Yeah.
difficult.
It just brought up a lot of my stuff. Like what it brought up was this feeling of inadequacy and this place that I thought I was actually useful in. And you know, it was like somewhere where I fit and where my talents were. And it was this, you know, I've always appreciated because it felt like it was this effortless flow of being where I can just be myself and be supporting people. And it wasn't happening. And I felt, I was feeling kind of useless and like what's the point? So I guess that's similar because that's sort of what I've been wondering about, is this idea of, well, what's the point of it all? Like there's, even though, I mean, by the end of the intensive, it was actually really good because I opened up and was able to just hold all these parts of me. Like I could see what it was is, you know, this love that's this core essence, this heart that just holds everything. It's like the the part that's aware and unaffected by anything, holding all these parts of me, whatever they were, like this kindergarten class. And they could all just be there every time. There'd be one in the corner crying. It's like, oh, it's okay, I can hold you. And this other one that's, you know, wanting attention, whatever the parts are, the one that's feeling like, oh yeah, I'm in command. Like all of it, all of these parts. Like I was just like holding them all. And it was that was effortless because I could just, every time something would show up in my mind, instead of like calling it the ego or the mind attack, all of that stuff, it just never quite felt right. It feels more like that's still another part of me. How could that be part that I need to push away? And so I just like bring that part in too, right? And so that was good. That was really good. Just to, and I'm still, when I talk about it, it's back again where I can feel this, you know, it's all just these parts that are doing their thing, and I can just hold them. Nothing has to change. And it's not about letting anything go ever. It's just about welcoming it all, or just holding it. It doesn't even have to be welcoming. That almost implies too much emotional attachment to something one way or another. It's just like holding it all. Like it is. It's like a kindergarten class. My kindergarten class, there's a lot of me's in here. Like 30, 40 of us. Yeah. But then I'm kind of looking at, so thinking about a question or something, that there is still this piece of like, okay, well, what's the point then? What's the point of life, or what's the point of being here? Yeah. If there's just nothingness, if there's just this holding. So
So we'll start with the small stuff. um, it's interesting. I was listening to this talk by Stephen Walensky on the way home. I don't know. You're probably not familiar with him, or maybe you are. He's a student of Nisargadatta, and I know that you're familiar with Nisargadatta, right? I am that. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, okay. And he was saying that someone came to Nisargadatta and was asking him that question. And Nisargadatta he's very adamant that there's one substance and not two. Like that like it's kind of another way of saying it's all one, right? But when people say that it's all one, they mean all of these things together are one. And he would say, well, no, there's not even those things. Those things don't even exist because they're all one, right? It's like he talks a lot about the ocean, and he's talking about the ocean is like like how is a drop in the ocean? How could you say that's part of the ocean, right? Because it is the ocean. Anyways, so um, I mean, I'm just giving you this. It's not just because that's what I was listening to yesterday, but he just talked about that there's. So if you're looking at things from that perspective, then there's no coming and there's no going, right? He's emptied it to such an extent that there's not even any coming or going. So then at this person that was asking about what's the point about being here, right, and coming into existence, Nisargadatta just kind of dismissed even that as that doesn't even happen. You don't even come into existence, right? You're just you're just here, and you didn't come from anywhere, and you're not going anywhere. But that's probably not tangible enough. I don't know. Um, but then I go to another teacher, Bernie Glassman. So he's a Zen master. He's passed, but he talked about how he loves questions, and that in questions, in some way, questions contain the infinite. That questions are absolutely and totally wide open, right? And he says he's not so fond of answers because answers enclose things, and answers, it's not his words, my words, they kind of chop up the infinite. So
Hmm.
so that's what I kind of offer to people when they ask that. I decide to say that's a really good question. And I just kind of, maybe if they can not be so interested in formulating an answer. Because, so what was the question? What is the point? Right? I mean, you can hear people have all kinds of mythologies that they come up with as
Hmm.
to what's the point. And and I guess it kind of goes back to that video I was sharing about and I'm going to do kind of another one more specific about what is our intention, right? What's our intention in being?
Mhm.
And my intention is to be at peace and to be free. And so when that question arises in me, it doesn't arise much, but when it does, there's kind of an inner meeting of the committee or whatever, and it's like, okay, is getting answer to that question, is that does that have any bearing on our sense of peace? And it's like, and the answer that arises is no. um, and so then it's kind of let go of.
So you're saying instead of having questions, just set intentions
Well,
and be clear about that. So it's not questioning what's going on. It's more being clear about what it is you want, what it is I want.
yeah, what, and I guess in some ways, just in you saying that, it kind of seems like, well, there's kind of a relation there. What's the point? What do I want? Um, yeah, because yeah, if you want to figure things out and you want a deeper understanding, then I guess that question's of paramount importance, right?
That's my intention, is to understand.
Right. But then if you kind of pull at that thread a bit, and why? So what is what's the mind saying is going to come? If I get the answer to this question, then I'll be at peace, or then I'll know what to do. Then I'll be able to get my bearings.
Well, then there's a sense of satisfaction too, like one more piece just slips into place, maybe.
Right.
It's like a
So kind of
structure. Then I can build my structure.
exactly.
There's no ground, and I can hear what you're going to say next.
Get a bracelet. I think I was talking to someone. Get a bracelet. What would Shawn say? um,
Tattoo. My wrist. Shawn say.
right. I mean, so yeah, I think you kind of said it right. It's looking for ground,
Mhm.
and I I would speculate that you've had enough experiences of groundlessness to know that that's much more peaceful
Mhm.
than ground. But I think that's a lot of the kind of balancing act, in some way balancing act, in some way tug of war that goes on the path.
Mhm.
Is come on, let's get some
'Cause,
ground.
yeah, like I think of people that that I've known and loved, that it's like they've just sort of given up on life. They're like, well, what's the point? And I'm ready to die now. And talk about, they're explain that all there is apathy. Like, how do you balance that? Because there's those two, right? There's apathy versus peace.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
so
I think
much so that people will, they'll kill themselves, right? Or they won't
right.
die.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day. Like suicide is the ultimate mind conspiracy. Like it's fabricated this imaginary story, and then it actually gets you so believing in the story that it tells you the only way to get away from the pain of that story is to actually kill the organism, right? Which in some ways has very little to do with the story. And this is like if the organism could speak, like, no, 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 wait. And I think that maybe that's kind of that they talk about that reptilian brain fear of death, right? It's just like, no, I want to keep going. Anyways, yeah, it's interesting. Like the Sedona method has this. He talks about these I guess I don't know list of emotions like anger, fear, and then apathy is in there. And I think he lists apathy as the worst or the most challenging or
Hmm.
but it's kind of the lens, right? It's the lens, like even emptiness. Like I was that conversation with Mama, right? So she was seeing she was just talking about you know you talk about it's there's nothing and I was like, well, yeah, I guess I do, but I don't really. It doesn't have that. To me, when I talk of nothing, it opens everything up. But I could tell from what she was sharing that when this idea of nothing, it closes things down, right? Something versus nothing. It's like an empty cup is not very good to have. So it's kind of so it's just it's like the lens, right? So that if you view the inherent emptiness of being through the lens of ground, yeah, then I can see where apathy would arise.
So when you say though that you see nothingness is it opens things up,
Yeah.
how do you mean that?
Well, so it kind of goes back to this Carlos. You remember Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan, right? I know that story may not be real, but anyways, it's a really good story. So
There's
he
a lot of
he was
nuggets in there.
so his whole thing was with Carlos was he's talking about you have to lose your sense of self-importance, right? And and Carlos and then one day Carlos just lost it with him and says, "Why do you keep saying this? You keep saying that I'm unimportant, and this is unimportant, and that's." He goes, "What about my child? My child's very important." And then Don Swan says, "Well, you look at importance." And he's kind of going to rephrase through the lens of hierarchies, right? Because and so this is more important than that. He says, to me, the world is full to the brim and it's even bubbling over the brim. So nothing is more important than anything else, but everything is equally important. But at the same time, everything is equally unimportant, right? That's so when I talk about nothingness, that's I mean I don't use that term much. I don't know, maybe that's how she heard it. But I mean I like to use the term emptiness more, but even that's kind of loaded. But yeah, so the nothingness is this that um, is is kind of when we let go of concepts. right? So we have concepts constructing our whole story about being. And when we start seeing that those concepts are just made up and they're not necessarily serving us on all levels, then we let them go. And once we let if we let go of the concept, then there's really nothing there.
So, can you give an example? What about this concept that I need to be doing something, like be of service to the world or something like that?
Right. So yeah, I mean, so can you see the possibility that that's just made up?
Hmm.
Right. So if it's made up, let's look at it from the other way. So if let's say it's not made up, may say that this is an actual objective truth, right? So then what would have to occur? What would have to be in place for that to happen? So there'd have to be something, there's the only way I can frame it, something other than you looking down on you or looking to you in some way and assessing and saying, this is, I don't know, this is my plan and you should be doing this.
Right. Or there's some kind of judgment there, whether I'm
Yeah.
achieving it or not achieving it.
No, there's, and it's, this is where it gets kind of weird because when we just let everything go, like in this place of groundlessness, there arises this uh, motivation to serve others, right? To be of service to others. But it's definitely not in any way a rule or any kind of outside should. Like,
Well, like explain that from your perspective, right? Because you have this new, I don't know if it's awareness or new, you have this lens or right that you're,
right.
and yet there's still this drive to do your masters and be helping people and
Yeah. So if, in my experience, things are just happening. Um, and this personality that swims around or arises in this organism called Shawn has things it's doing. And and one thing just seems to happen other after the other thing, right? So it's like and then these ideas come up to do this, ideas come up to do that, and like there's kind of this underlying sense that this is more beneficial to do this than to do that, right? To go work in a slaughterhouse versus, I don't know, helping the homeless, right? Or whatever. There's kind of these moral perspectives. However, at the same time, it's pretty clear that it's all made up. And I guess for an example, right? So I had a timeline, talk about my master's, I had a timeline in how when I was going to get my master's done. And there's this push to get my master's done because there's other, like, there's uh, kind of therapy positions and stuff like that that are open to me, that aren't open to me without having it. Um, but things have arisen in my life, right? And this happens, that happens, and working on the masters gets bumped, or my professor's kind of very busy, and there's availability there, and so it's like, oh, looks like it's going to take me longer to do that, and I can, and there's this sense that comes up that has a concern for that I need to get my master's because that will be better, right? Life will be better, and but it, and sometimes it's believed for a little while, but ultimately it's seen through as not true and just an idea. I don't know. That's kind of a long answer.
Well,
So
no, that's
yeah, from the outside, it does look, and that's the weird thing about it. From the outside, it looks like there's motivations and there's uh, drive, and there kind of is, but then, but it's kind of happening at this level, right? That drive and motivation's happening at this level, and at this level, that drive and motivation is is irrelevant.
so you're kind of just going along with it.
Yeah, yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess I knew that video that I was watching, Walensky, because he just says, forget about the idea that you're doing anything, right? He says, and I think we've talked about this before. He talks, and then it gets kind of into the talk about free will and stuff, but he says it's like this. He says, you do this. Okay, I'm gonna lift my hand up. Oh, there it is. See, I did it. I'm gonna put my hand down. Oh, see there, I put my hand down. There, I did it. He's like, everything is happening before you get there. And this can become a like really crunchy mind food, right? That gets, but there's a kind of a perspective to look at it through that it's very liberating. And I remember when I was first getting interested, Derek had kind of introduced me to the whole idea of free will, and I was just like, oh, this is really interesting. And then we were out for lunch or dinner or something, and this person was there, and she was just like, well, what's the point? Like, so what? So what if we have free will or not? And I was like, no, yeah, but it's really cool because you didn't do that and you didn't do this, and but after a number of years of pondering it, I think that it's very liberating. Like it's kind of, that canal in Penticton. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever done it. I've never done it, but you just go in the dinghy and you don't have to do anything, right? And you know that you just hang out on this dinghy and you do whatever you're gonna do, and it just takes you down, and you're going to be at the end, and then you get a bus or whatever, and you go back. And for me, the idea of letting go, the idea of free will, it kind of has that effect. So that there's like Shawn going on down here, and then there's kind of, I don't know how to express this, but it's just kind of the hanging out up here. And so Shawn's doing this and going through stuff and getting his master's, not getting his master's, starting his therapy business, not happening, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, cancer, all the stuff, having to be of service and all the stuff that goes on. And and then there's just kind of hanging out for the ride. But in that hanging out, you're kind of hanging out with everything. You've kind of stepped out of this doing, like, right? And then you're hanging out. Like if you look out your window, or even in your room, right? Or everything's just hanging out, right? The ocean's just hanging out, the trees, the birds, everything is just flowing along.
Hmm. I was just listening to Michael Singer yesterday talk about this idea of we think we're in control or something. He said, but think everything's going on around us everywhere. We're not controlling any of that, and yet we think we're controlling something here. That it's
Right.
different.
Yeah. Even that you had that thought about Michael Singer.
Right.
Right. Right. We control that. Yeah. So I think that's it's kind of like that's the no parachute, no ground story, right? We embark on this path to be in control and to control better things coming into our lives.
Achieve all kinds of things.
Yeah. And then we come to realize that we have no control actually about on anything. So then we freak out. That's the part where I didn't pack a parachute, right? Kind of thing. And then, but then that's kind of where I'm saying, like, then if you can kind of just shift your perspective, then that's when you see, oh, there's actually no ground. So I don't actually need a parachute. Then it's kind of like Joseph says, then you're just flowing. I don't know if he said that. He said something. But there's just he calls it falling. And it's, yeah, I guess you can say kind of falling.
All right. So it's like if there's no ground, there's nowhere to reach to.
Right. And it's these things that we hang on to that we actually have the impression we're hanging on to it, but it's falling with us. Right.
Okay.
So it's not actually offering us any. It's like that story that Jack Cornfield tells about, and I think I talked about it in that video. Oh, and this the other video, surrendering, where the these kids, they get their grandpa he's never been in a plane before, and they give him they buy him a ticket to this kind of the barn stormers or whatever. They come by and they're little biplanes, and they give people rides in airplanes, and they buy Grandpa a ticket, and he gets in it, and he goes and flies the plane, and then he comes back and goes, how was it, Grandpa? How was it? And oh yeah, it was really great. I could see you guys, and I saw our farm. And well, how was the flying? Were you okay with? He goes, yeah, I was a little bit. It was okay. I was a little bit nervous, but to tell you the truth, I didn't quite let my weight down all the way. So that, so I didn't quite trust it completely. I know Jack tells it a bit better, but
No,
that,
that's good.
right. That's what we're doing. We're going and we,
We think we're
yeah,
holding back something, but
right. And even surrendering, right? Even trying to figure out all this that we're talking about, that falls into that category too. That it, in some ways, it doesn't really matter whether we figure it out or not. I mean, I guess it makes for a more pleasant experience.
yeah, or like you say, more peaceful.
Yeah, more peaceful. um, but you haven't actually yet accomplished anything, right? I mean, that's the weird thing, right? Because that's all the so many teachers, they say that, you end up just right back where you started. And we all hear that, but the mind just grabs it and turns it into doing. Okay, how am I going to get back to where I started? Okay, what direction do I go to get back to where I started? And it just, and like I said, in that, maybe for me, I just had a lower tolerance for suffering. And so I was willing to go with that. All right. They said, I'm here. I'm here now. This is it. Okay. So what, in what ways am I not buying into that?
Into because you're saying get back to where you started. Like, what did you mean by that?
Well, you're here now, right? It's here now. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. And so, what ways am I convincing myself that there is somewhere to go and there is something to do? Like Ajashanti is, I think I love that. He talks about that. He talks about being mindful of when you're on the path to becoming, because he talks about that. It's always, it is, it's always here. But he also talks about always being, always becoming. But that just gets a bit murkier. But the path really becomes, at least for me, in my experience, was understanding in what ways I was looking through the lens of becoming, and as best I could, letting go of that, and also kind of letting go into all of the scariness that entails, right? Because that means that this is as good as it gets. And I think for a lot of people, that's not satisfactory. Like, no, this is that was the kind of the conversation with with Mama the other days because she was talking about, these feelings of connectedness, these feelings of bliss, and somewhere along the way, we get more interested in that than being free. We get more interested in the, I guess, in some ways, the kind of byproducts,
Mm.
the possible byproducts of freedom, and a kind of willingness. Yeah, there's almost a willingness to not feel that all the time.
To not feel what all the
Connected, um, bliss, um, anything.
time.
You
Right.
you fill in the blank, right? What do people go to retreats to feel?
Hmm. So you have to just let go of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think in some ways that can be the hardest part, right? Even love, because that is definitely it's kind of murky when you talk about it. Is in some way is a byproduct of freedom.
Hmm.
But it's not as yeah, because then you start chopping it up. Is it a byproduct or is it the same thing? But anyways,
Well, and then there's like the whole part about fear, right?
yeah,
I mean, I'm just seeing it everywhere with COVID, right? The fear of this or that, or it seems to really be bringing it to the surface for people.
yeah. But
But so if you're saying you just so in that though, you would just be okay with the fear being there.
for you or in others, or what?
Well, I guess I'm thinking others.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you're going to do about others. So.
Right. But in that state, like when the fear comes up, then, right? Like that's, I mean, that
Are you
seems to be.
talking about others?
No, okay, we'll talk about me now
Okay.
then. Right? Yeah. So, like you said, yeah, I can't do anything but others. But just this, there's like love is letting go of fear, and it seems like it's the flip side of it. But at the same time, it does seem to be this which drives stuff so much, right? So when the fear comes up, like whatever fear of applying for a new job, like all this
Right.
stuff, right? Like, so that's just what's here. I mean, it shows up, and it's what's here. Like, does that mean don't try to do anything with it? Just observe it, or at what point is it helpful to just set your intention for peace and like it sounds like there's doing in there, right?
Well, yeah. If you consider letting go of doing,
Well, is it letting go or is it welcoming? Yeah,
to me, it's the same thing.
right.
So if you, I mean, let's say that I think Hale put it this way: um, if you're sitting in your living room and your door is open to the outside and someone comes to your door and you welcome them in, is that a doing, right?
Mm.
That's that's kind of, in some ways, it's the opposite of doing. You, so something is coming and you don't hold it back, you just let it come. Is that doing? Yeah, but then it kind of, like, all that stuff's gonna happen right in the mind, and trying to figure it out, and sometimes it's helpful just to kind of check in and, am I trying to get somewhere, right? What's this story that's going on? Is there a story about me getting somewhere and being more spiritual, being more enlightened, right? Because if we're honest with ourselves, that can usually pop the bubble pretty quickly, and in some ways it makes welcoming, uh, yeah, it kind of, welcoming just happens, and
So in terms of the fear then showing up,
right.
that's like the,
Well,
am I trying to be more spiritual?
by well, fear, I mean, you kind of explore it, right? Is fear trying to hold the structure together,
Mm.
right? So we started off this talk, you talked about the structure you're creating, and is the fear around a threat to that structure? More often than not, it is. Sometimes there's just kind of a primordial fear that occurs, but even, and then if we feel fear, like, so what? Like, again, it just becomes like, why should we not feel fear,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, like just like another emotion.
Yeah, another emotion, just another happening.
Mm.
That was pretty meandering. Was it meandering?
Was it? No, I came right back. Oh, and you gotta go.
Back to the structure. Yeah, I let my guy know I was going to be a bit late.
Okay. But yeah, no, it came back to the structure
Right,
and that
the ground.
questions are trying to build the answers to questions is about building structures, and feeling fear is about trying to hold this structure that I think I've already built together.
Right. I mean, so do you have a sense of what is your, I would say this kind of, what is your ultimate? Like, what do you really want?
Mhm. Yeah, I've been kind of like just moving that around as we were talking. Like, okay, is it peace then? Is it the same? Is it freedom? And like you said, well, maybe it's Mama said love or connection, but then I always hear you in the background. Well, what is that bringing you?
Right. So that's the thing, right? I mean, that's how I talk about my quest. Like it started looking at what's everybody around me doing. Everybody's working hard, so it looks like they're trying to get a new good car and good girlfriend, a good wife, a good relationship, a good house. Why are they doing this? Well, because they're going to be happy if they do it. Okay. So what if I just focus on happiness and make that and cut out that shot, side game? And then along the way, happiness became replaced with freedom,
Mm.
right? And then freedom, I don't know, freedom and peace to me are kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have reference points for these things, right? So there was always points where I could there was somebody watching and said, yeah, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. And then that could become that was, all right, so how did I get there? What was I doing? Right. And to me, it just became, well, I got there by hanging on to absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it's like, okay. So then the mind's always selling you things that here, if you take this, you'll get it or do that, right? If you become a teacher, whatever, you have your own practice, whatever, all these things, have your own home, have a awesome electric car, right? Right? It sells these things. And fortunately, somehow there's someone there kind of screening those offers. And like, nah. Remember we got here by letting go of everything. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. This is not letting go of everything.
Yeah.
But it's a moment by moment thing, right? Because there's this part of me. It's like, okay, I'm the one that lets go of everything. That's gonna keep me pain free and in peace for perpetuity, right? And as soon as that's happened, I've clenched onto something. That identity, that I'm the letting goer. Then you gotta let that go. Okay, that's kind of the hardest. I guess I've said that. The, the challenge is that it can't be anything but a moment by moment. There's no there's no creating a foundation. There's no um, sticking your flag here. There's no gaining any territory at all.
Mm-hmm. It, so it feels like, and I don't know if it's still trying to get something, but lately there's been a lot of where I'm just pausing and becoming aware and then allow myself to really be aware, like to take in life or these things and beauty, really. Like there's something about that too. There's this always this constant offering of, okay, well, like right now I can hear frogs. And there's something about, just letting that in, that letting the beauty of that in. And it doesn't seem to be attached to and getting of anything. It's more like just moment by moment.
Yeah, just floating on the tube.
Yeah, yeah. So if I can float on and just just be looking around at, wow, that, and wow, all these expressions of life somehow, all these ways that life, that creation is found to express itself somehow,
Right.
right?
And we
Whether
and
it's
we
with another person, even, right? Like looking at another and just seeing the, the beauty there, or the aliveness. The aliveness could be a rock, right? Like it's like there's still this something about beauty there.
right. Yeah. I mean, we're on the spiritual path and we look for something profound or something miraculous, right? And it's right in our face
Hmm.
every moment.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm finding. Like every moment, I can just stop and look, or feel, or yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be something visual, right? Because there's people out there that are blind, and
Well, it doesn't have to be beyond your body.
yeah,
Even the fact that this organism somehow,
this breath. Like,
yeah,
yeah, cool. Well, this was great.
yeah, it's fun.
It was. We'll have to do it again. It'd be the
All right,
weekly,
it's a what?
the weekly Shawn and Michelle hangout.
It's a date, but you have to get up.
I will.
Let's stay up till 1 o'clock. All right, I'm just gonna stop the recording.